Coming to you live from the palatial studios of PBJ Productions. Welcome to Patrick and BJ Talk Real Estate, where we talk about life, the universe, and everything as it relates to real estate. Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Patrick.
And we're back talking all things real estate. And Patrick, you told me that people are actually leaving Canada, not coming to Canada.
Well, we still have like a very generous positive net migration.
Right.
So there's a lot more people coming than leaving.
Yeah.
But over the past 10 years, there's been more people leaving than we're used to.
Okay.
Usually we have about 10. Okay, so right now we're at an immigration level of about 465,000 according to the federal government, right?
Yeah.
And they aim to have a little bit higher than that, 500,000 or so. New immigrants come to Canada every year. But in the past 10 years, we've been used to about 10,000 immigrants, newly landed immigrants leaving Canada. And recently, maybe it had something to do with COVID, maybe it had the times, things. A lot of people say it's the cost of living across Canada has increased. The cost of energy, cost of fuel, cost of food, cost of things like that, right?
Yeah.
And there's other difficulties that we can talk about. But it's increased over 10,000. It jumped to like the following year, all the way. Instead of going backwards, I'll just add it up to this year, what is this? 2023, right? So 2022. So we went from 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people leaving to 40,000 people leaving last year.
Okay.
Obviously, we don't have the number yet for this year, but it's probably going to be similar
in the neighborhood.
So if you are living outside of Canada and you're thinking about moving to Canada, this video is for you. And, Canada's awesome in a lot of ways, right? We got poutine, we got maple syrup, our hockey players are awesome.
We have the Oilers, yep.
We've got Oilers, right? We invented basketball.
Yes, we did.
We've
got Rush came from here.
Rush, lots of musicians.
Triumph.
Also,
I'm a rock and roll guy, right? So Rush, Triumph.
Giddy Up, right? And,
Gordon Lightfoot.
Plaid Jackets.
Sure.
Red Green Show.
Red Green Show.
Trailer Park Boys.
Super Dave Osborne.
Super Dave Osborne came from here. Mike Myers. Did I get that right?
Mike Myers, yeah.
Yes, as well.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
John Candy.
John Candy.
John Candy.
What was that?
Those aren't two cushions from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. If you don't know what that scene is, go and watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And there's a scene with Steve Martin where they're both in the same bed because they couldn't get a room. And
oh no, I was thinking of. Well,
and he says, "Where's your hand? My hand's between two pillows." And
it's not.
He says, "Those aren't pillows." Oh,
I think of Canadian bacon.
Yeah, but anyway, that's probably one of the most hysterical scenes in a movie is in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with John Candy and Steve Martin.
So there's a lot of good things about Canada.
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky, yes, Wayne Gretzky. Good job. Before we get carried away,
right?
We have provincially. We have free healthcare, like we pay taxes, income tax, property tax, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But we have a bit of a safety net. We have some social programs, and it's great that it's there for people, right? It's not perfect. Canada has its issues, its problems.
Sure.
But generally, I think looking at the world in general, we're a good place. We're still a sought after place to move to.
Sure.
But this video is for those people that are thinking about moving to Canada. And so this is my top 10 reasons why new immigrants leave Canada. So number one, this is the whole point of this video, is checking your expectations.
Right. Yeah.
So the number one reason would be people's expectations of Canada are too high.
Yeah.
And we were a little bit tongue in cheek, it's a little bit about the weather, a little bit about this, and Canada is still Canada, even though we are a large country, but things are different from province to province.
Sure.
Not entirely different, but it can be a little bit different at places. So, so all of these points, it's not to be, this is horrible about Canada. There's but it's not perfect.
Sure.
Right? We have our problems. Some places have higher crime than areas. Some places have different weather than others.
Yeah.
So now that's being said, let's get on to number 2.
Okay.
I think this is one of the more important when skilled people come here, especially in healthcare.
Yeah.
Is they're not able to get the jobs they desire.
Yep. Or their certification doesn't come over laterally.
That's right. It doesn't transfer over.
I was actually talking to someone the other day. He's a real estate agent. I was a commercial realtor, just starting in commercial real estate, and so we got talking about he's got some businesses that he owns and things like that, and he's talking about how he's newly immigrated to Canada, and his career is actually he's an optometrist, and he said, and I was kind of like, that's an interesting transition. He said, well, I found out it would take me 2 years to get my designation to move over.
Re-educate.
Right.
And how much money?
Right.
And then pay for licensing again.
Yeah, somewhere in central Canada. He would have to go and do that and redo it and retake it. And so he just said, it doesn't make sense.
My wife works in healthcare, and there's plenty of they're not even new immigrants anymore. They're Canadian citizens, but they immigrated to Canada, and they were nurses wherever their country is.
Yeah.
And I've heard this with doctors, but this is like the real life example in front of us. But they're working as healthcare aides.
Yeah.
Because it's too expensive and it takes too long to get their licenses transferred over. Hopefully, the government will, our federal government will address this.
Yeah.
But that is a problem. Like, so, we want to set expectations first, right?
Yeah.
And that's perfect. Like that's a real life story where examples of that's happening.
Yep.
So number 3, and we kind of touched on it a little bit tongue in cheek. Most of Canada is pretty cold in the winter. Like it's -20. I'm from Ontario and you're from the prairies, so like the temperature is different. The weather's even if it's cold. Like I was on Lake Ontario. And we had this thing called the lake effect. So we had more precipitation, and in the summer, more humidity.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tropical. It feels like going to Jamaica to me, right? Or Florida, where the humidity is just that much more. But then in the winter, it feels colder there. What I've been told, I haven't spent a winter in like Calgary or Edmonton or Winnipeg or anywhere like that.
Yeah.
It's not the same cold.
I hear that a lot. I've never been to Ontario in the winter either, but I've lived through many winters in Alberta, and it's cold is just cold.
Yeah.
But I would say, just use here as an example, when we hit about, -3, 4, 5.
In the winter, yeah.
It is freezing.
Yeah, here, and we're on the ocean.
Right, right through every layer of clothing.
Yeah.
Like right now.
Yeah, we can feel the Pacific Ocean here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Victoria, like as much as like Victoria and southern Vancouver Island, most of the east coast of Vancouver Island is pretty mild in the winters.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you go up north, you get more snow.
Sure.
But
and I should qualify that whole -5 thing. That's a very rare occurrence. We very rarely get below 0.
We get it, but it's just a reminder that like it's winter and then it goes back to rain.
Right.
So we can have long periods of rain here.
Sure.
So that's also something that people.
My friends in Alberta kind of laugh at me when we talk about that.
When we get
it's
snow.
like 2 degrees and I'm freezing cold here.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
Vancouver's the same thing. Like it's more rainy over there on the lower mainland. Vancouver.
That's right. Yep.
What do they call that? They have rain shadow. We're in the rain shadow. So it skips over us because of mountains or something like that. I'm not a meteorologist. Yeah. And it rains on Vancouver and that. So it's more rainy over there.
Right.
So expectations of like where you are.
Sure.
It's colder than a lot of places here.
Okay.
All right. Number 4. Maybe this isn't a surprise. Real estate and rent is expensive here. That's a big generalization.
I think I was going to say, I think it depends on where you are in the country, because we'll use the prairies again. We were just talking about it, but the cost of homes and rents are going to be less in the prairies than they're going to be in here on the island or Vancouver, or even you're going to find that sure, rents are going to be a little bit higher in Calgary and Edmonton, but there are options. There are, in any city, the rent is going to be higher than if you move out a little bit, and that applies everywhere. But if your level starts here instead of up here, because the rental market itself is priced better, let's say in the prairies, whether it's Saskatchewan, Alberta, or Manitoba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the most expensive cities that you could go to, it's like, well, Victoria is probably in third place, and Vancouver and Toronto probably compete for first place.
Yeah.
So
Ottawa's got to be up there too somewhere. I've heard.
It is.
Yeah.
It is with
And
Montreal.
Yeah.
And I think Calgary, it's mixed in there with those, like not in the top three, but like in the next three probably.
Okay.
But outside of the top three, the average price across Canada is somewhere in the low 400,000s. New Brunswick is like, when you put it in perspective, right?
Yeah.
So if you just come out of the major centers, it starts to become affordable. But then it's a whole lifestyle change to, is there enough employment? You know, like is the amenities and things that you want and desire.
And what is the commute like?
What's the commute like? It used to be commute until you can afford it. I've heard that told to me so many times, right?
Yeah.
So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Number 5. Oh yeah, so leaving Canada because the cost of real estate and rent is too expensive.
Okay.
That was the one.
Yeah.
So number 5, returning to their home country. My dad went back to Czech Republic after he retired.
Okay.
Right? We got a pension from Canada.
Yeah.
It went a little further over there. So I could see people returning back to their home country for family, different, more personal reasons, family reasons.
Okay.
So number 6 would be the cost of living in Canada is too high. Now we already mentioned like real estate prices are high, rental prices are high, but for all the places other than Victoria, it gets cold in the winter. There's other costs to consider, like heating your house for 6 months. I don't know. I was in Halifax once, and it didn't get warm until like the very end of July.
Wow.
Like it was kind of sweater weather until that point. It could have been that
the
year
season,
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it was cold. Yeah.
Well, and on the flip side, there have been times in Edmonton where it snowed for Halloween, and then the snow didn't go until, basically May.
Yeah. So in that meantime, like it doesn't matter if you're on oil or electricity or whatever, natural gas.
Gas, yeah.
It's still, you have to heat your house. So you have that additional expense.
Right.
And the cost of like groceries, cars, insurance vary across the country from province to province as well. Where BC might be a little bit more expensive. We like to say British Columbia, like BC, stands for bring cash. We have a lot of other expenses here. So I'm gonna jump off from that point to number 7.
Okay. Yeah.
And that will be high taxes. So now a lot of these taxes go to like infrastructure, schools, our medical care, those kind of things, our police, firefighters, all the government services, military, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So we have it. I'll use this example from like the U.S. in general. You come over here and it's like our liquor tax, our tobacco tax, our fuel taxes. We're taxed on a lot of different items. Like it's hidden in a lot of places.
Sure.
And then we throw on top of it a provincial sales tax, if that's called GST or HST, either goods and services tax or a harmonized sales tax. So it depends on what province you're in. It'll be called different things. Am I missing anything else? Talked about benefits, talked about that. Oh, silly me. Our income tax. Our income tax is, I wouldn't say is like a sky high like some of the Northern European countries where they have like tons of social benefits, but it's sort of a balance between we have quite a few benefits, social programs for people.
Sure.
And but not as on your own as you are in the States.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a very generic answer for that, but just to give people an idea.
Yeah.
So number 8, we're getting through this all nice and speedy, right? We talked about healthcare. People leave because of healthcare or medical reasons.
Okay.
So what is the what is the balancing act we have here in Canada? Well, we might be paying for our medical system through our taxes. That doesn't include dental or eye care,
or chiropractic or physio,
all the other additional supports that people can have. Great, that's a good way to put it. And our trade-off is a long wait times.
yeah,
I hear more and more from people that rely on medical appointments, that it takes a long time to get things done.
Yeah.
Unless it's an emergency of some kind and it's deemed vital, then you might get pushed up the line somehow, right?
right, yeah.
So
I'll give you an example, and not everybody can do this, but I know somebody, they had a health issue, which potentially could have been significant, but they were looking at, I believe it was 8 to 12 months before they could kind of get the next level of whatever the process was.
whatever scanning,
Whatever
or
they
testing,
needed.
or whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, not everybody's got the wherewithal to do this, but he went to Seattle and got it taken care of in a weekend.
If the funds are available, if people have the means, they go either to the States or Mexico. As far as people have been telling me.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other options. But that just to put it out there, just so you know, if you're thinking about coming to Canada, it's not just a free ride. It's a long line at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So, number 9. This is probably not what people thought, but what if they never planned on staying? Maybe they were here just for schooling, to get a
Okay.
certain kind of
Yeah.
schooling.
Yeah.
Or they were employed here under contract for a while, like a temporary worker.
Yeah.
Or they thought, well, let's try it out for a while. And
See
they
what-
weren't really committed. They were
Yeah.
just, testing the
Yeah.
waters out.
See what we think.
Yeah. I haven't really met anybody like that, where they would just be here like, oh, we're just here on a contract for 2 years or 3 years, and then we'll see what happens at that point. So I really haven't come across that. I think we're in Victoria, BC, Southern Vancouver Island. Everybody either longs to come back or stays here, it
Yeah.
seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is probably the biggest challenge, I think, for most new immigrants, is the challenge of starting over.
Sure.
Now we touched on earlier in part 1, a lot of times training or experience, licenses, those kind of things don't directly transfer
Yeah.
over to the Canadian system.
Sure.
Now, if you have a language barrier, if you don't have English or French as a fluent language, it might be also not just for your career or employment,
Yeah.
but some trouble fitting in with the rest of the community.
Yeah.
Might take longer to make friends.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think even in that, and I think back to as a kid for my parents, they left their families and their siblings and all of their friends behind in India.
Yeah.
And back then, this was in the 70s, there's no WhatsApp, there's no, getting
There
somebody
was the
on the
telephone, and that's it, right?
Yeah, and then you couldn't even get the calls all the time. I think they had to schedule a certain time and
Oh, really?
for the overseas calls and
It's
stuff.
so much easier now, right?
Yeah, right. Like I talked to my aunt last night. She's in India. I just WhatsApp and we're essentially like FaceTiming. Hey, how's it going? What's going on?
super easy.
But it wasn't like that then. And in that also, they were building a whole new community with other, in the 70s, with other immigrant families from India, from Calcutta in Edmonton.
Oh, so there's a community there.
It's grown out of that.
But that would have been the
but
start of
they
it.
would have been the start of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they had to reinvent life, basically.
I'm just thinking about my parents' experience, right? They would have met in Montreal. Later, they moved to Ontario because of, employment opportunities. And growing up, same thing. You know who we hung out with? Every Friday night, there was a group of Czechs. Czechs and Slovaks all hung out together every week.
Right.
Or, we go play soccer on Saturday or
Right.
those kind of things. But,
Yeah.
without having that built-in community somewhere, people have had challenges. So
Yep.
that would be my last reason is Maybe there was some difficulty. You know what? I've talked about this before with people moving to Victoria, as an example. Even if you had none of these difficulties or challenges to get past,
Yeah.
people have given feedback that it's hard to integrate yourself with society here, make friends is what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's hard to make friends here because people are very polite, but it takes a little bit more to get engaged.
Yeah.
And I think I've said it before. It's like, well, as soon as you have a family, all the parents start hanging out together, or the moms start first.
Right.
And then then the dads meet the other dads, and then everybody gets to know each other. Other than that, it's like, what are your common hobbies? Right.
Sure.
I would encourage everybody, whatever. There's like dog walking, hiking. There's all sorts of pretty easy stuff.
Yeah.
Meetup groups that you can go into and help integrate. So
yeah.
But that wraps it up for me.
Yeah, and I was going to say I would agree with that, because I would say, when we moved here, that's 10, 11 years ago now, 12 years ago, knowing nobody really, right?
Yeah.
And how do you build that community? And part of it's through school, and for Ria Marie, through school and everything. The other part is through the real estate office that I ended up starting with. And the other was through church family.
Yeah.
So the church community for the churches we were part of, and so without that, and even that, it's still a whole different gig to get to where it's beyond the how's it going surface kind of stuff, right? So it's certainly I can relate to that as far as that goes, for sure.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for me. Moving a little over 20 years ago, my wife is from here, so it was sort of an instant group of friends from her high school group.
Right.
And then as people grew up and had families or moved away for work, sort of had to restart. And like you said, it's been basically like church family and work friends.
Yeah.
So, and those have lasted. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the top 10 reasons why new immigrants end up leaving Canada.
So if you haven't, please take a minute and subscribe. We just want to make sure by subscribing, you won't miss any episodes that we put out. I think we're putting out, are we doing a couple a week?
Two and three a week.
Yes. 2 or 3 weeks. So that way you won't miss out on anything. Help us with growing the channel and just getting the word out for people who are looking for. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's good information. Sometimes it's just joking around. We're doing the vlogs. You've probably seen some of those where we're in the community.
Lots of fun.
And so if you have something that you'd like us to come to in the community, let us know. Put it in the comments or reach out to us directly. We'd love to come and support whatever is going on locally.
Yeah, if that's in the comments below, or connect with us directly. Of course, if you're thinking about moving to Canada and you want to know the right people for a location, or even just discuss, what's it like in one province or another, we can get you in touch with the right people to help you out. And of course, if you're moving to Victoria, Southern Vancouver Island, we can help you with that, with purchasing a home here. And of course, we sell homes here in the area as well. So feel free to reach out to us, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
See ya.